Women should be able to pay for their own food.
Yeah, and I mean, females do the same amount of work, so why shouldn't they be paid the same?
Do you guys even know what feminism is?
I don't really care so long as I don't have to pay.
No?
Okay, don't say you're a feminist unless you know what it is. It could offend real feminists. Here, let me show you something. Feminism in the United States dates back as early as Pocahontas, but the first real movements anybody sees would have to be in the... oh geez, the first wave. It's in 1840 to 1920. This started with Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Susan B. Anthony. Susan B. Anthony stood for all things feminist. She got arrested for illegally voting because women deserve just as much of a say as a man. They offered to give her special treatment in jail, and she said, no. I did the crime, I should be punished just as fairly as any other person. Elizabeth Stanton was a woman who believed that giving voting rights to African American men before giving them to white women or African American women at all was wrong, because everyone has the right to have a say in their country. She believed all people were created equal.
Oh.
Now, we can't just jump right from wave 1 to wave 2. There's a stop right in the middle. And do you know what that is? Really, it's like the American Civil War of feminism.
Oh, the Great Depression. No. The Pax Romana.
Potato!
Great Depression I can understand, but Pax Romana and potato, really? The greatest thing a woman had done would have been during World War...
See?
No. World War...
Potato?
No. World War...
Donald Trump.
No, 2! World War II. Jesus, men were left behind during that. They had to do all the jobs men left to go and fight. They had to do everything. They were the resources behind World War II. They made the guns that could be sent to our men overseas. They did everything. Where have you been? They were the women who were left behind. They're the reason we won the war. They were our rivet girls.
What's a rivet girl?
Bet they got paid well.
Wasn't there a lot of blood in the Civil War?
A rivet girl is a woman who built the planes and the weapons that were shipped off. They did the rivets, you know, like Rosie the Riveter, and women bleed enough already to cover that. Rivet girls are the icona of World War II at the home front. They are the reason we won the war. And no, they really didn't. Women did just as good of work as men, if not better sometimes, and they were still paid less.
Really?
Yep. In fact, we have our very own rivet girl in this town. She's 93 years old and still feisty. She ended up with some of the most incredible injuries that you wouldn't contemplate today, and she still had to work.
What else did they do?
Yeah, what else can women do?
Well, let's take a chance and see what she has to say.
Well, my name now is Viola Pugh. I did riveting, but my job wasn't all riveting. My job was the wings were put on the station before they came to our station. We were in final assembly, and the wings were put on the station before they came to our station. And what happened then we assembled the parts as the wings were put on, then there were things inside. We had the little light that flashes up in the air on the edge of the wing. That was put on our station. Then they had the de-icer tubes. That was the rubber part on the edge of the wings. And those were tubes that came from the motor. The inside was already assembled. And we put the two de-icer tubes from the engine and the one that came from the wings. We put rubber on that, and then we put clamps. Then we had the skin to put on around the wing, and that was called the stub.
Okay.
Now the engineers had to, they had only gone far enough to put the holes in the top, and I think there were 3 holes at the bottom. And we had to squeeze that around the wing. Now the place nuts were on the wing. And then we measured blind to drill the holes to match that. And now I had a scale, and we measured down from the scale and drilled, and you better get it right. Then we countersunk that and put a screw in. And then you measured for the next hole. And you had a punch, but you better not put the punch too far or you knocked the place nut off that was on. If you did, you had to take it off, what you had, and rivet that on and start over again. So that went around the wing, and you drilled till you got those holes drilled in, and then you could fasten the 2 or 3 bottom ones on.
Wow.
Now, after that, there were the ailerons. Now, this was the cables that came from the motor that steered the plane. So people were back there working on the ailerons that went up or down.
Okay.
And also they put the gas bags in under the wings. Now for this they had your boys, this boy, stand up. We had a midget that went under, that went under. Much, the midget that was there would be, he was perfectly formed. He would be about as tall as just to his shoulder. His head would be like where his shoulder is.
Okay.
And he put the bags, the gas bags in.
Wow.
And around the gas bags was this foam. And you know what a skunk smells like. All of you know?
Yeah.
If that foam got broke, I mean, this odor was something else. And I think there were three bins, like, and this was the gas bags with that foam over it, which of course would be sealed up. But before it was sealed up, there was an inspector. Now, he wasn't formed. He didn't grow right in his parts. But he had to be trained. He had to be trained to be an inspector. All of this people had to be trained because, I mean, you know, the war came on fast and that was it. And now, you were hearing bang, bang, and this, they were working on the bomb, the belly, making the bomb doors so they'd shut and open.
Wow.
Bang, bang, as they made it work. Then on the nose of the ship, that was glass.
Really?
Well, not in one piece. It was in small pieces. And it had gun turrets, too, that came out of the nose. Now that was assembled on our station, too. And the planes were on, we were up, we had to go upstairs to do our work. I had to be on stairs to reach the top of the wing.
Oh, wow.
Now, under me was, his name was Jimmy. Now, he was working on the firewall, and he did drillings down on the firewall. And then, by the gun turrets, when it was time to, didn't get that done. They had to drag all their toolboxes and ladders and air guns and all this and that.
Mm-hmm.
They had to drag that up to the next station. I think we were three. There were two planes ahead of us to be where it was assembled. And then people would, Al, our head man for that ship, I mean, he was out there and telling us, I would usually press the button, then all the planes would go, and that emptied one out where it was supposed to be. Where then they'd redouble and recheck that.
Okay.
And it was about, they had us work 1 month days and 1 month afternoons, so that I was taking the streetcar home when I was on nights at the same time that I was, you know, it ended up the same time, one month and the other month.
Oh, cool.
When we caught this, we had to catch the Willow Run bus. We had to, they had one bus go out of Detroit, and now the other people, a lot of them, they called it the cattle car, because they came from Ipsy, and they just had to hang on the edges of that. There were so many of them. And Henry Ford, he went through one time.
Oh, really?
And they'd come through. I had pictures where they took us while we were working. We didn't even know it. I was in a lot of the pictures in the newspaper, but they threw it when I had gone out west. They were, anyway, it got pitched. And now there's something else that you might like to know.
What would that be?
On the radio, they had a man named Major Bose. And, everybody thought he was great. He had a talent show. He had people come and do their thing. It was broadcast on the radio because they didn't have TVs then.
Yeah.
And at the end of every show, he had a saying. It was different each time, but it was a saying, a nice saying. Usually it was about 2 or 3 lines. I'm just going to say this to give you an idea. This is one touch of nature makes the whole world kin. Or what is a friend? A single soul dwelling in 2 bodies. I mean, it was just a saying.
Yeah.
Now this saying, he would say a different saying each time after each program. But this saying was also posted on the streetcars. Now the streetcars always had advertisements.
Yeah.
And when they were crowded and you stood up, you were always looking at the advertisements.
I still do that.
So that was going on. At the same time, they had a classy woman, and she was called Tokyo Rose. Now, Tokyo Rose would say things that was running down the U.S. boys. Japanese, see? And she would say things to run down the U.S. boys. And the Japanese was telling her things.
Mm.
Well, it turned out that she was spying for the U.S.
Wow.
The Japanese thought she was on their side. So that's how that turned out.
Oh, cool.
But the Japanese, but our boys knew it. But the Japanese didn't. Now, what Major Bose was doing with the things that he said, there were words put in there. He was spying on the United States.
Oh. Wow.
But the United States thought he was the greatest.
Yeah.
But the United States got it figured out. Figured out the sayings. They picked out words and got that he was given the Japanese things. And when they found out that he was spying, he took a pill.
Oh, wow.
He killed himself. Major Bo's big fancy program stopped. You didn't hear this. I'll tell you some other time. But I thought you'd like to.
Yeah.
You might want to put that in.
Definitely.
And about was about 2:00. Then the painters would come on, and they would paint what you see on the airplane, the red, white, and blue
Oh, yeah.
star and the star
Oh, cool.
on the ships. Well, we called them ships.
Oh, they're airships.
So when you see that little flash on the end of the planes in the air,
What was the
I can't
what
hear.
was the number of the planes you guys were building? The B what?
Your plane model. B.
Oh, I don't remember.
Okay.
It's not important. I remember one time, we were eating supper, and a plane had come, and it was real low. It was right over our street in Detroit where we lived, and folks were going out to look at it. It was really low, and they were hollering at me to come out, and I said, no, I bumped my head on it all day long. I'm not going out. But you know, my forehead, from where I had to be under and drill on it, my forehead was so burned from that hot aluminum that fell. It was 2 years after we were through before my forehead was so burned from that. Now, I wore my hair done up. There were girls that didn't wear their hair done up. Now, you just take one squirt of a drill on your hair, and their whole scalp was gone. They kept telling them to wear something on their head, and I wore my hair up all the time. But that's the way it was. Yeah, it was 2 years. I've still got a piece of aluminum right there from the boat, or from the ship.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, there's a piece of aluminum. I couldn't dig it out. I also, on the sharp firewall, I cut the cord in my finger. But there was just enough left on, so I had to work like this, because if it wasn't kept up, this would have dropped.
Yeah.
And I also had a piece of aluminum in my eye. I went home with it. My eye was bothering me, but when I was home and I went to bed, I looked in the mirror and I could see it, but I couldn't pull it out. So the next morning, I went down to the clinic and they pulled it out. So then I had this.
All sorts of troubles.
Well, then I couldn't. Then when I reached for the straps, I wasn't on the streetcar, and I went to fall, and the man beside me, and I grabbed hold of his pants, and I'm pulling on his pants.
Well, that's enough of that story.
But anyway, I said, "I'm sorry," and my face was red. You just smiled. Lands, no. You were riding on the bus. It was an hour on the bus. Sometimes you
So what did you do on the weekends?
you tried to get some rest. You were tired. It was an,
Okay.
I was up at 4 o'clock to catch the first bus into town to catch the Willow Run bus. And you got the Willow Run bus. Sometimes you had to stand all the way out to Ypsilanti. Or you could sit on the cold floor. You had your choice. You had your choice. And coming back, it was the same way. A lot of people slept. I mean, people were tired. They worked hard. It was hard work. I'm not, and I was used to work on the farm. Some of them, a lot of those people came up from the south, and their family was down there, and the other people came up, and they came in with, I always had my lunch and a lot of us had lunch, and but they brought a card in, but I mean you were better off to take your lunch, 'cause that wasn't substantial as, but that's the way some people eat anyway. Some people don't eat healthy. Oh yes, I need to tell you that. Shoes were pretty much raisoned. Yard goods, meat. But see, we were at Ethel and Les's place. Well, see, that was before your time. But Ethel was our neighbor on the farm, and she married another farmer. And and another farmer, Ethel's father was there, her mother was there, and the men folks just traded beds. One was going to work, one was coming back, so the bed was pretty warm. And yes, meat, but when with the gas ration too, and you didn't buy cars, the gas was rationed, but Dad could get up to the farm, terrible snowstorms, and bring eggs back. And but the meat was rationed, and you really kept the lights out at night, even that way. Now your tin cans were washed and put out. Everything was saved because they needed everything. They were fighting 2 wars at once. And I used to have fellows come up that I knew, and they'd say, well, I'm going now. And no, you didn't buy furniture. Things weren't there to buy. Things were not there. That was a good question, and to put down too. If you can think of some other. No, we didn't have air raids.
Okay.
No, but Detroit kept out a lot of lights. Yeah. One night, I'd gotten off the bus, and there was a different. They just gave us a transfer. It wasn't up to date when we got off the Willow Run bus. And there was a different fellow taking the transfers. And I had got off the Willow Run bus and got on the streetcar. And he looked at my transfer. And he said, "You've been fooling around town. This is outdated." See, they just give us anything on the bus. But this was a new guy. And I opened my mouth, and I said, "I just got off the Willow Run bus. This is no good." But the motorman knew me, because I rode, and he said, "No, she's on my bus every night." And then the motorman his name was Mr. Brown. And he would, there was a stop before my street and one after, but he always let me off right at my street. Motorman, Mr. Brown. Yeah, and then, see, we had an accident on ice when we were going back. It was Christmas, I guess. I was driving. It was that curve, and it had just started. And I fought to keep it in the road, but I went in the ditch. And we had 30 dozen of eggs in the car. And I swear they were all in my hair. Because I was in the hospital. See, I had a hunk. This leg had a great big rip taken out. I could see the cord in my leg. And so I was out a month. And of course my clothes were in Detroit. And I was in the hospital. And then I went to my aunt's while I was getting my leg healed. And Dad had a rip in his face, and he was all bloody, but he managed to well, it was so icy. Dad was busted a glass to get out of the car, and he hailed a car down to get us into the hospital. Mom was head down, and it was so icy. It was so icy that as we were at the hospital and the car was stopped, that they just pushed the car so that we could be close to the hospital to get out.
Oh,
That was, and there was a car over on the road by Port Huron that had gone over the bank down by the water, and they had got her out, and the girl in there had broke her pelvis, and so one doctor, and he was trying to take care of everybody, and at the same time there was a woman in there having a baby, so he was a busy guy. He was really busy.
now, did you guys go back up north to the farm very often then? Were you able, or did Grandpa usually just do that one?
Well, only made the trip. He had to go without, Dad had to go without sleep to get up there.
Yeah.
And, well, then I told my aunt, I said, I'll see if I can have a chiropractor treatment before I go back to work. And so I there wasn't anything but clothes to put on, and so I had a slip to put on, and I had it full of safety pins to hold it up. So the fellow said, well, the chiropractor man said, well, I don't want to give you treatment till I take an x-ray, which made sense. So he came out he came out and he was all flustered and he said, "You're full of safety pins, all inside you." It was so funny. And then when I went back to work, I got off the streetcar and Mr. Brown grabbed me and he says, "Where you been? Where have you been?" And I said, "Well, I was in an accident." And my foreman said, "Haven't sold one of those stubs since you were gone." Well, they had a redhead on the other side. He made more money than I do. But Al used to come over and say, "Viley, go and help Red. He's not going to get that done." So that was the way it went. But it was funny. The man was so excited. "You're full of safety pins." No. Well, they had uniforms, but I mean, you were dirty, and so you changed every day. You were dirty. And we had one fellow that come up and he spit tobacco juice all where you walk. And I never said anything, but another fellow said, "Why don't you quit spitting around? She's got to walk in that all the time." And so he quit. But he'd come up there and spit. Yeah. But they had coveralls. I had a pair. I would wear them, but I wore overalls, and I had a padlock on the back buttons.
2, 3.
Why don't we look and see? So now you know what a real feminist is. And really, they took a stand. They did what needed to be done. They took over when no one else would.
Yeah, I just want the women to pay for dinner.
So, give me a ride home.